cash offers or sell with certainty this summer because Gloria will guarantee upfront and in writing to sell your home at 100% of market value or she will pay the difference. Hey, the St. Louis market is shifting. Now is a great time to call and get to know Gloria Liu like I have. Call 314-325-6888 or visit GloriaHasTheBuyers.com. That's GloriaHasTheBuyers.com. Gloria and seller must agree on price and possession date.
This is the Verizon Extra Innings Show. Verizon, the most reliable 5G in St. Louis.
On the stretch, the pitch on the way, swing and a miss. That's a Redbird winner. Pumping his fist, Joel Pozo. He was able to tag Bush out, picking the ball out of the dirt. Pozo embraces Ryan Helsley. The Cardinals come out of the dugout and celebrate another comeback win on a Saturday. The Cardinals are 11-2 on Saturday. They're 4-1 in the Victory Blues.
That's what it sounded like as the Cards wrapped it up 8-6. Welcome into the Extra Innings Show. The Extra Innings Show is presented by Gray Bar. Gray Bar, your distributor for electrical and datacom needs. Joe Pott with you. If you want to get in with us, 314-436-7900. You can also jump on the socials. We're on YouTube, on X, on Facebook, and you can comment right on our stream. We'll see it. We'll talk about it, and we'll talk about a nice way to snap a 4-game losing streak for the Redbirds today. They had to do it comeback style, as you heard John mention, and now they are 12-2 or 11-2 rather on Saturdays, and 4-1 on those Victory Blues. So 4-1 on the road on Saturdays when they wear those Victory Blues. Just a really nice kind of turnabout after the debacle yesterday. Just if you heard the network post, Oliver Marmol said, we got kicked in the teeth yesterday. We had to have a response, and that they did. And for the most part this year, that's been the case. And so now it's about building on that, right? This has been a streaky team. I sat here last weekend talking about where this team was, how good of a spot this team was in, and it felt great going to Pittsburgh with such momentum, and that was all out the window after a 3-game series in Pittsburgh. But they've been, as I said, a streaky team this year. And the losing streaks have been followed by winning streaks. And there's been lots of offense followed by offensive droughts. So it's interesting, and it's tough to figure out sometimes. But again, this could be the start of another one. That's, of course, the hope of the team, that this would be the start of another streak like that. They certainly could use it. We'll start with a caller. It looks like I've got someone from Rock Island on the line. That would be Andy. Andy, you're on KMOX.
Close enough. So kind of have a two-parter. Number one, Miles Michaelis, and I'm not trying to overreact to just one start and 6 home runs in 3 innings, but kind of wondering, number one, how can he take the ball one more time for the Cardinals after everything he's kind of put us through the last 3 years? And then number two, if the Cardinals kind of keep treading water and maybe improve a little bit, but what do we think that the front office will do in regards to stepping up and either getting a bullpen arm, another starter to pair with Liberatore and Sonny Gray, or maybe even another outfielder?
Yeah, all really good questions, and I think things that most of us are thinking. And I will admit, I had kind of turned around and thought maybe Miles Michaelis was rechanneling, what we saw in 2018, but that has gone out the window in his last couple of starts for sure. It's just when he does go bad, it's so bad, and I tend to agree with you, because I wonder, especially when, as I was just saying, this is a streaky team. You get on these little runs and they're just crushed. And to be honest, Eric Fetty hasn't been great in his last few starts. So I think there's definitely a need there for an arm. You've got 2 legit starters, as you mentioned, in Sonny Gray and Matthew Liberatore. You've got a pretty good arm in Andre Palante. At least you feel like he gives you a chance, which sometimes I don't think you feel that way with Miles Michaelis and even with Eric Fetty. So I don't know what the answer there is, as far as I don't know what they're willing to do with Miles Michaelis. He's in the last year. I don't know if they're willing to cut ties and eat the rest of that. I'm just not sure. And as far as how aggressive this team is going to be, I think you're going to find out sooner than later. I think that if you're going to make a deal, they would like to make a deal that perhaps is a little bit of a lower cost. I think that fits into what we kind of expect from this front office, this management. And to do that, you got to do it before the deadline probably. And I hope they're in the spot. And I think that's ultimately going to decide how aggressive they get. Last year, they thought they were making an ad. It was Eric Fetty at the time, and then they just went downhill from that trade deadline. So I think that they've got to be in the mix at the time, or I should say continue to be in the mix, because they are, quite frankly, in the mix. They were just a game out of the wild card going into today. It takes just another nice, good streak, and you're right back in the mix, if not, better than that, if not leading that wild card race or close to it, because that's where they were really just a week ago. So I don't know. The answer is I don't know about how aggressive they're going to get. The indications have been, even when listening to John Mozeliak, that he still is in the job. It's still his day-to-day job, and I think he wants to do the things that are going to make this a nice finish for him. And if it's anything, obviously, that's a little bit longer term, there will be some input from Chaim Bloom, but everything that I think is indicated there is that, he wants to set himself up for the best possible spot as he gets into the job. So I would expect that something would happen as long as they stay in the mix. And it certainly looks like they have the opportunity to. They've got to avoid these extended losing streaks. Up next is, I don't know who that was up next. Let's go back to the phone line. I've got somebody, I think, from Kirkwood on.
Hello?
You're up.
Okay, thank you. I've been wondering for the last couple of weeks with Herrera out why Pozo hasn't been used as a DH and catch more. Seems like every time he comes up, he does something great. And, he's got singles. He's driven in runs in the past few weeks. I just don't understand that. A guy like that should not be sitting on the bench and used so sparingly. And that's all I got to say.
Yeah, I appreciate the call. So the first part of that is you don't want to DH him if you can't afford to DH him with Pages catching, because then you risk either losing your DH or not having another catcher on the bench. And I think just the fact that he doesn't catch every day or take the bulk of that is that Pedro Pages is a better defensive catcher. I think you want him in more often than Pozo. So you're limited a little bit, especially since Ivan Herrera wasn't doing the bulk of the catching either. He was doing more DHing in his time in there. But you're right. He is a quality right-handed bat and a guy that more often than not, and more than that, he's probably not going to strike out. 5 strikeouts and 79 at bats this year. And ultimately, that's what you want. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing to have coming off your bench because of days like this, where you need something late in the game. We saw him win that game in the 12th, a week and a half ago at Busch Stadium, whatever it was, or in the 11th, because he's a guy that puts the ball in play. So I appreciate your point, but I just don't think you can start him over Pedro Pages so often behind the plate. And then obviously you don't want to DH him while Pages is catching. So I appreciate the call. We'll take a break here and come back. Actually, I'll hit up some of these comments first. So Andy Cockrell says McGreevy is the first step, and that's a really good point. I was actually wondering if McGreevy wasn't going to come up and start tomorrow night's game instead of Eric Fetty, because he is right on his normal rest, or would have been. I haven't looked unless they had moved him up for some reason, but he would have been on normal rest to pitch tomorrow. So that is definitely that was at least what I was thinking. That might be a possibility, but so far that's not been the case. As we understand, Eric Fetty will continue to start tomorrow. Andy adds that he thinks they'll keep all 3 catchers, and of course I think they will, and they've shown that already this year that they will keep all 3 catchers up. And it makes sense, especially because Ivan Herrera is not doing the bulk of the catching. So you're going to have him in the DH spot. You're going to keep Pages back there with the bulk of the handling the bulk of the work. behind the plate. Jeffrey adds, Joel Pozo is a big weapon off the bench. He is. He's a great weapon off the bench. Kelly says, great win today. He or she, I don't know. Kelly likes Pozo's approach, and he's got that approach all the time. I don't know anything about the new balls being used. I know Mike Claiborne sort of teased that. I don't know how serious he was. He did talk about that on the pregame show. It's just Wrigley Field is just one of those spots. The wind was blowing out today. You would have thought it was blowing out much harder yesterday. It wasn't, but it is just one of those crazy spots that things like that seem to happen at Wrigley Field. I appreciate all the comments, appreciate the calls. I'm going to take a quick break probably here, and we'll come back, see if we've got any other calls. If you want to get in, still a chance, 314-436-7900. Cards win it today, 8-6. It's the Extra Innings Show here on KMOX. We're coming back.
You are a successful electrical contractor, but you plus a dedicated team supporting your project from day one? That's taking your productivity to the next level. And Graybar can help you get there. Your relationships plus our relationships. Your capabilities plus our job site services. Your challenges plus our technical specialists. You alone can get the job done, but you plus Graybar, that's smart business. Yep, Graybar does that.
At Sandberg Phoenix, we are more than just a law firm. Our attorneys are committed to you, your business, and your community. From startups to established businesses to estate plans, we are ready to serve you in the areas of business litigation, intellectual property, health law, and products liability. With offices in Missouri and Illinois, you can conveniently visit us today at sandbergphoenix.com. That's sandbergphoenix.com. The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertising.
There's a big red barn where you say free. Norm's Bargain Barn. On discount windows, doors, and things. Norm's Bargain Barn.
Hi, I'm Norm Wilkie. Come see my new selection of Amish cabinetry made by my good Amish friends at Countrywood Products. We now stock 5 styles of cabinetry for you to choose from.
When you need to save on discount windows, doors, and cabinetry, come to Norm's Bargain Barn. With locations in Shiloh and Fenton at the bottom of Gravois Bluffs. Visit normsbargainbarn.com.
That's normsbargainbarn.com.
You know Graybar for electrical parts, but there's one more thing you may not be thinking of us for that can help maximize your next project's total value. Our pre-project planning services are designed to help you win the bid, save on labor costs, and keep your installers productive across your entire build. The sooner you call us, the better. Because when we're there from the beginning, we can anticipate your needs and help you solve problems before they become problems. Yep, Graybar does that.
Now, back to the Verizon Extra Innings Show.
With one out. The pitch, the runner goes from first. There's a long one. Left field. It's a goner out of Wrigley Field. Joel Pozo with a pinch 3-home run. Unbelievable.
That's what it sounded like. Joel Pozo giving the Redbirds the lead and ultimately the win as we welcome you back in on the Extra Innings Show. It is presented by Graybar. Graybar, your distributor for electrical and datacom needs. Joe Pott with you from KMOX here as the Cardinals win at 8-6. Couple of quick comments. Steve says, who do we have on the current roster that has trade value? Donovan would be the biggest chip. They don't want to move him. He adds they don't want, he said they won't want to move their prospects. So I think that, the Cardinals, I think they are willing to move from a position of depth. And the guy that might come to mind for me would be maybe a guy like Sajasi. And I'm saying that because if you think about last year, they moved Tommy Edman, who I don't know if anybody would have expected at the time, the Cardinals to move Tommy Edman, but you had a little bit of depth there because you had Brendan Donovan as well, and they're a very similar player. But the answer is I'm not really sure, and I don't know where they believe that they could get value. I think it just depends on who they think they might be able to move for value. I don't know about prospects wise because you're right. The Cardinals have been very hesitant to move some of those top prospects. So it'll be interesting to see that if they're doing something, where that piece comes from. I want to get Lou in as well. Lou's on the line, giving us a call. Lou, you're next on KMOX.
Oh, thanks for speaking with me. I just have three comments. The first one, it might sound silly, but I'm wondering if Joel Pozo is kind of channeling a former resident of the planet Krypton, whose name on Krypton was Jor-El, whose name on this earth is Clark Kent, Superman. And the second comment is that his hit reminded me of Earl Weaver's adage, never underestimate the power of a 3-run homer. And the last statement is, I'm wondering, do they check very closely for loaded bats, because it seems like there are a lot of homers, especially yesterday. And that's all I've got to say.
Yeah, Lou, I appreciate it. That's interesting. It's certainly a timely reference for Superman with the new movie coming out and everything. But man, he certainly feels like it, and it's one of those moments I think we'll remember, especially if this kind of spurs the Redbirds on. It'll be another one of those big Cardinals Cubs Wrigley moments. So that's interesting. I don't think that I don't know that there's any reason for Major League Baseball to be checking the bats just because you have a day like you have yesterday with all the home runs. That's just not, I mean, it's just one of those things that happen. There's a reason that it hasn't happened before to the Cubs, to the Cardinals. It doesn't happen very often. It's just one of those days that the ball was flying. Obviously, Miles Michaelis wasn't great, and that didn't help things either. But I don't think that there would be any reason for them to just check bats randomly. I could be wrong. And, Mike Claiborne, like I said, I think mostly in jest was talking about some of the balls being used and whether they were juiced balls. But I don't think either of those things are the case. And I don't think that there's any reason for Major League Baseball to be checking bats. And there's nothing that I know of that suggests that they would do that just randomly based on the outcome of a game. We've seen games like that before, maybe not to that extent. Obviously, I recall a game a couple of years ago against the Dodgers at Busch Stadium. I think the Cards might have hit 7 home runs, something like that. So there's just some days, some games that it seems like the ball flies, and that was certainly one of them yesterday. And as far as the Cards are concerned, as Oliver Marmol would say, you flush it and you move on. And that's what the Cardinals certainly did today, is move on, and they did so in a big way. And now, as I said, this has been such a streaky team. I don't think anybody would be surprised if the Cardinals went on another little bit of a run here and they won 6 of 8 or even 8 of 10, something like that. The Nationals come to town after the series here, after an off day on Monday. It'll be the Nationals coming to town. So again, it seems like the Cardinals also have done a nice job. And I'd have to look to see, what they are against those certain teams. But they've done the job in winning, for the most part, winning the games that they should be winning this season, and often taking advantage of some of those teams that are not playing very good baseball. The White Sox come to mind. The Guardians come to mind. So if you have that opportunity, the Nationals and the Braves are not playing very good baseball. Everybody thought that they would be playing much better. They're 12 games under 500 as they come in. So you've got the bottom 2 teams in the National League East coming to town, leading you into the All-Star break. You're going to see the Marlins. You're going to see the Rockies. All of that's coming up in the second half, the quote-unquote second half, after the All-Star break for this team. So again, I would not be surprised if this is one of those stepping off points for this team. And they go on and they win 5 of those 6 games next week at Busch Stadium, and maybe win tomorrow, those kind of things. That is the way that this team has been playing this year, as frustrating as it is on a lot of occasions and in a lot of cases. It's really been what this team has been for a lot of this year. But as I said, they are not, they're right in the mix here. With the win, they're now a half a game back of the Padres for that last wild card spot. The Brewers are right up there as well. They're chasing the Brewers down for second in the National League Central. But everybody was so sure that the West Division was going to be where those wild cards were going to come from. Now it still looks like both San Francisco and San Diego are going to be in that mix. I don't think there's any question. But the Cardinals are in that mix, and they're going to stay in that mix because of what I just mentioned, because of who they've got on their schedule coming up after the All-Star break. When you get to play a bunch against the Marlins and you get to play a bunch against the Rockies, it certainly makes things easier. And they'll see the Rockies and the Marlins before the month of July is out. They're going to see the Rockies in 3 games in Colorado. They're going to see the Marlins 3 games at Busch Stadium. You're also going to face the San Diego Padres in a 4-game series at Busch Stadium, one of those teams that you are specifically chasing down for the wild card spot. And that all takes us back to, will the Cardinals be buyers? I think that the Cardinals certainly, I think they'll be looking to add, and I think that it's not a question of will they be buyers or sellers, because they might very easily be both. I still think that there is a chance that someone like this is strictly my opinion, that someone like Ryan Helsley could garner some interest because of who they might get back. I think the value is going to be high for a Ryan Helsley, and I think that they've got enough that they might be able to fill that closer spot with somebody else. And if they think they can get that value, that makes sense to me, because you're not going to get that value if he leaves here because you can't come to a some sort of deal after the season since he's a free agent. And I still think that is a possibility. I'm not saying that I know that for any reason. I'm just thinking about what kind of value you could get for a Ryan Helsley, and if you can then fill that closer spot. So if they can add to this club right now, and they're also receiving something for a pitcher that they're not going to get anything for if he walks, then I think that is something that might be explored. And then, like I said to one of our commenters, last year they unloaded Tommy Edman, which I don't know a lot of people saw coming. So I think that somebody like maybe a Thomas Sajacy could be that kind of player. He's a little bit of a depth guy, right? He's not a guy that's going to be in your starting lineup every day. You want to get him in a couple, 3 times a week if you can. He's good to plug in a day like you did today where Nolan Arenado gets scratched before the game. You've got to plug somebody in. They plugged him in because Gorman was already in the lineup. Gorman is already in the lineup because you're short, because you don't have Ivan Herrera. So when Ivan Herrera comes back, that's another spot that you're going to have. You've got Jose Fermin. Again, he's a guy that is only getting the incremental playing time. So I do think there are some pieces on this major league roster that if they wanted to make a deal, if they thought they were getting the right pieces back, I don't think that they would be shy to do that. And it's really going to be interesting, I think, to see. And so again, I don't know that it's going to be yes or no as much as it's going to be how much in are they? How big are they going to go if they're going to add to this team? And that's kind of fun, because this team has not been really in that position the last few years. Do need to remind you, What's on Deck is brought to you by Chesterfield Fence and Deck. The sign you have the very best, chesterfieldfence.com. What's on deck immediately is the series finale with the Cubs. That comes up tomorrow night. Again, it's a night game. If you've got an older schedule, it's going to show you it's an afternoon game. It is the ESPN game, 5:10 first pitch, St. Louis time. 4:15 is the pregame show for us here on KMOX. Eric Fetty right now, the scheduled starter, 3-8 with a 4.56 against the lefty Matthew Boyd. He's 8-3 with a 2.65 ERA, and he had his way with the Cardinals the last time they were here just a week and a half ago or so at Busch Stadium. So it will certainly be a tough task for the Redbirds. We know how they've performed in some occasions against the left-handers, and Matthew Boyd has proven to be a tough one for them. And again, don't forget that the all-star rosters, the full rosters, will be announced tomorrow on ESPN. That comes up just ahead of the Cardinals game on Sunday Night Baseball. That's when they'll announce the reserves and everybody. And you have to imagine there might be 1 or 2 guys going from the Cardinals that have been selected there to participate in the all-star game. They didn't have any starters, so they'll have at least a couple probably going in the reserve section. Big thanks to the voice of the Cardinals, John Rooney, to Rick Horton, to Mike Claiborne, to Ryan Schulte, all there in Wrigley today. Big thanks to Daniel Hinkamp, keeping us on time and in line all afternoon, and he has been doing that from the start all the way here through this afternoon. I'll talk to you again tomorrow on the pregame show, which begins at 4:15, and then that first pitch coming up at 5:10 from Wrigley Field. Cards with a chance to win this series, and then you come back home, and again, you've got Washington and Atlanta. Good chance to maybe get right back on track here. Try to get to that elusive 10-game over mark. They can do that next week here at Busch Stadium if things all go the way that they certainly can, especially against a couple of teams that are struggling. Big thanks to you for joining in. Thanks to my callers, my commenters, all that. I'm Joe Pott. Keep it right here on your home of the Cardinals, 104.1 FM, KMOX.
Wake up informed. Wake up empowered. Wake up to Total Information AM, your morning must.
Hi, this is Debbie Monterey.
I'm Megan Lynch.
This is Tom Ackerman.
From local news to breaking headlines to weather, traffic,